Susan had always been the life of the party. In her younger years, she filled every room she entered with laughter, stories, and a sense of comfort that drew people to her like moths to a warm porch light. Her calendar had once been packed with social events, coffee dates, volunteer meetings, family barbecues, and book club discussions. But as she crossed the threshold into her 60s, something began to shift. The invitations stopped coming as often. Some friends moved away to be closer to grandchildren. Others slipped slowly into illness or into silence. A few had passed. Her children, now busy with careers and families of their own, called often but visited rarely. The house, once echoing with conversation and chaos, had grown still. Susan found herself facing something she had never prepared for: solitude. At first, it felt like abandonment. She missed the casual connection of daily life. The friend who used to stop by unannounced, the neighbor who once shared tomatoes from his garden, the small talk in the grocery store that turned into shared laughter. But one morning, sitting alone with her tea and watching the birds gather at the feeder, Susan felt a strange flicker of something else. It wasn't happiness, not yet, but it was curiosity. What if being alone didn't have to mean being lonely? She decided to approach her solitude like she once approached friendship, with openness. Instead of chasing after what had been, she leaned into what was. She started taking long walks through the nearby park. Not to meet anyone, just to be present. The routine grounded her. The air, the trees, the quiet rustle of leaves became her new companions. One afternoon, she paused at the same bench where she saw a familiar man feeding squirrels. He smiled and nodded. The next day, they exchanged names. A week later, they sat together in silence, watching the same squirrels as if they were old friends. His name was Miguel. He was 71, a retired postal worker, and widowed for 5 years. They didn't have much in common, not on paper, but something unspoken passed between them in those moments. A shared understanding. They didn't need to talk much. They just needed to be near someone who understood the shape of their days. Susan learned something in that park. After 60, friendship changes. It's not about shared history as much as shared presence. Not about quantity, but quality. Not about daily check-ins, but quiet reliability. Later that month, she joined a local painting class, not because she wanted to become an artist, but because she wanted to try something new. The instructor, a lively woman named Carla in her late 60s, welcomed everyone with a kind of fearless joy. Susan hadn't painted since grade school, and her first canvas looked like a child's dream gone wrong. But no one laughed. They all smiled, nodded, and carried on. Every Tuesday afternoon, the group gathered, some for the art, but most for the company. That's when Susan understood. Friendship after 60 doesn't always come from the past. Sometimes it grows from the present, from simply showing up, being yourself, and not apologizing for who you've become. She stopped mourning what she'd lost and began celebrating what she could still build. She made a list called People I Can Call. It had only 4 names at first. Miguel was one of them. Carla became another. Her old friend Jean, who had moved away but still loved long phone chats, was third. And then, surprising even herself, she added her own name. Because one of the greatest friendships she discovered after 60 was the one she built with herself. She took herself on dates, movies, solo lunches, Sunday drives. She cooked new recipes just for fun. She wrote in a journal every night, learning to enjoy the sound of her own voice, even if it only echoed in ink. Some days were hard. There were holidays where the silence returned too sharply, when old grief crept in through the corners of her smile. But even then, Susan didn't feel lost. She had become her own anchor. She started volunteering at the local library, shelving books and greeting visitors. There she met children, parents, and other seniors, each with stories, smiles, and the kind of small connections that stitch together a life. One quiet afternoon, a teenage boy helped her lift a heavy box. He told her he missed his grandmother. She said she missed her grandson. They laughed, and for a moment, 2 generations met in shared longing. Susan began to see that friendship after 60 isn't just about finding your peers. It's about staying open to everyone. Children, teenagers, younger adults. Everyone has something to give, something to teach, something to receive. By her 65th birthday, Susan threw herself a small garden party. Just 10 people came, no grand affair. But each guest had shared something real with her in the past year: a kindness, a conversation, a smile that lasted longer than expected. They gathered under fairy lights and ate homemade cake, and for the first time in years, Susan didn't feel like she was clinging to the past. She was fully here, in the present, in her own life, and it was good. The real deal about friendship after 60 is that it's quieter but deeper. It doesn't demand constant attention. It thrives on patience, on showing up when it counts, on sitting in silence without needing to fill it. It isn't always about old friends. Often, it's about becoming your own best friend and welcoming whoever crosses your path with a kind heart and open eyes. Susan still walks in the park every morning. Miguel is often there. Sometimes they talk, sometimes they don't. And that's enough. Because joy, she's learned, doesn't always arrive in crowds. Sometimes it comes in the company of one or two or just yourself. And that, she knows now, is more than enough.